here we are. It is Flyers Penguins pregame show. That's Brian Smith on the right side of probably most of your screens.
We think.
And yeah, we're pretty sure. As long as your name is under you this time.
Yeah.
And Jason Martinez. And we're getting ready for the first matchup of the season between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. Is it the Penguins if there's no Malkin, there's no Crosby, there's no Mike Sullivan, there's no Brian Dumoulin, there's no Chad Ruiz? I mean, they're missing a ton of players.
Like the store brand Penguins, right?
Bobo Penguins?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's not the name brand Penguins. It's a bunch of guys in Penguins jerseys. Unfortunately, it seems like all over the years they play better without Malkin and Crosby sometimes. But this is a whole different animal. I think they got a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I mean, Carter's missed time. They don't have the same depth that they once had when you could get away with, like if Malkin was out, Crosby would take his game to even another level, as if that's even possible. And then the same thing, Malkin, if Crosby was out, would do that. But I think this is a different animal. And dare I say, Bri, early in the season, are they at a bit of a crossroads already?
It's hard to say. And
you sound like crap, by the way.
I'm going to apologize in advance, because I'm playing hurt tonight. I have not even seen Coatsy in person. Well, I guess I did, but I didn't get this from him. It's just a coincidence. But at any rate, I think they, it's interesting. They had a good start like everybody else did, and then they dropped 3 in a row. And I'm not 100% sure how that's related to this COVID situation they're having, or if it's something different. I'm really not sure. I haven't been paying enough attention to them. But they are maybe at a crossroads just from the standpoint of a lot of the stuff we've been talking about with the Flyers, and that you can't get too far behind right now in this division because, there's what was the thing I saw today? 6 something or other, double-digit goal differential teams or something like that in this division. There's only like 2 in the others. I don't remember exactly what the stat was.
I think one division has 3, and the Metro has 6 of 8.
Right. So it's that same situation we were talking about with the Flyers, where you don't want them to get too far behind under any circumstance, because you never know whether you're going to be able to make those points back up. So I don't know. They definitely need to figure out a way to fight through this overall situation that they are in. But the good news for the Penguins is if they are going to keep on, sputtering here a little bit, they've got a lot of runway to make it up at the other end.
Yeah, but you just wonder, with not, last year was interesting because you played each team in your division 8 times. Right. So if you just took care of business against the teams you were competing with to try and get in, if you weren't one of those top seeds, you could move pretty quick in the standings, because that's all you played was division teams. So they were all 4-point games. They may need help at some point. I mean, they've lost 3 straight, like you said. They lost to Tampa 5-1. They lost to Calgary 4-0. They lost to New Jersey 4-2. So in their last 3 games, they only scored 3 goals. Prior to that, they beat Toronto, and Toronto wasn't Toronto at the time. They beat the brakes off them 7-1. But this Penguins team, other than that game, I mean, they have a 7 spot that they scored and a 6 in the first night. But then after that, they just haven't been putting up much goals, but they just don't have a lot of depth offensively. I think this is different now.
Yeah, you might be right. I mean, it's hard to get a read on it this early in the season, but at the same time, they were also getting some pretty lights out goaltending from Tristan Jarry, and it seems like that has also dried up a little bit. So that's a bad combination on the Penguins side of things. If you're trying to figure out a way to get yourself through one team, or one part of your team struggling or the other, have them both go down at the same time, that's a bit of a rough go.
If I told you their top 4 scorers were Danton Heinen, Drew O'Connor, Evan Rodriguez, and Brock McGinn before the season, you would have had me committed. But that's what it is. I mean, Gensel's played 7 games, but has 4 points, and he's 5th in scoring on the team.
That would be sounding like a rebuild year.
Yeah, it does, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like, the LA Kings 2 years ago.
Yep.
You looked at it and you went, well, Kopitar's in there, but okay, and Carter. But other than that, and they've had so many guys miss so many games. I mean, Crosby's only played 1 game, doesn't have a point. You look at Jeff Carter. He's been in 5 games. He's got 4 points. He's been effective when he's been in there. Kasperi Kapanen doesn't have a goal in the season, but they are hit by it right now. And we saw today, late news came out this afternoon that even the head coach now is not going to be behind the bench. And Mike Sullivan now in COVID protocol. I don't know if he tested positive or it's just because of exposure. I don't know what the rules are now anymore. I can't keep up with all of it, but he's not going to be behind the bench.
I mean, it seemed for a while, right, that we were just having people test positive. And then, I think there was something like a 3-day waiting period or something like that. And then if you tested negative, you were back in. I think that's all we were seeing. But now we're seeing guys with symptoms again and things that, I don't think we were expecting to see, right? With with the vaccinations where they're at. I know that I'm certainly no expert on it, but I know there's people talking about boosters and things like that. I don't know if that's down the pike for the league, if this starts to get any more widespread than it is. But it just seems like it's another one of those situations that you weren't expecting to come along the way that things were going with this overall COVID stuff. So it's hard to get a read on it, but for Pittsburgh, it's definitely coming at the wrong time.
Yeah, in a world of Randy Johnson curveballs, it's another curveball, is what it is. And it's just like, oh my goodness, what is going on here?
And I know you and I know firsthand from our own lives how readily this stuff seems to spread in ice rink settings. I'm just a little on the outside nervous about this game tonight. I don't think you still have a situation where you've got people walking around who have it and don't know it like we did maybe a year ago. But what's the chances of this hopping teams tonight? I don't know. It's certainly something to keep in mind.
Yeah, no question about it. And it'll be the Flyers and the Penguins. And, one of the questions I saw kind of floating around on social media today was, no Mike Sullivan, no Crosby, no Malkin. The big names are out. But is that a situation where is there a little shine knocked off this game? For me, maybe a touch, but not really, because it's still Flyers Penguins. And whether those guys are in the lineup, whether it's because of COVID protocol, injury, or whatever, it's still 2 points that are available. And this just makes it even more, adds more urgency for me for the Flyers to make sure they get it done when you're facing a weakened squad.
Yeah, I think in this certain times of the NHL where the divisions are so tight and, every point is so important, I don't think that this rivalry loses much of its luster at any point. In fact, I think maybe some of the other Metro rivalries that didn't have much luster get a little bit of a boost. The funny thing about Philadelphia and Pittsburgh is over the years that it's kind of come and gone, whether it was a rivalry or not, and a lot of the times that had to do with how bad Pittsburgh was. During the time that they were decent in the early '90s was the time the Flyers were bad, but in the '70s they were more or less irrelevant. Same thing for the late '90s. It's what got them basically to where they are today, was being able to draft Marc-Andre Fleury, Sidney Crosby, and Evgeny Malkin in like successive years. They basically did what the Oilers did, but were able to make it work a lot faster than the Oilers did. So.
Yeah, and they take Marc-Andre Fleury over number 1 overall, do the same thing with Crosby, and you're right. Sometimes it's not that you suck; it's when you suck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's weird. And interestingly enough, we did look into it a little bit. Since Malkin came into the league in 2006, this is only going to be the 4th time the Flyers have played Pittsburgh with neither of them in the lineup.
Wow. Since 2006.
Yeah, since
15 years.
Malkin came in the league. Yeah. Obviously every now and then one of them has not been in it. But the first time, or only the 4th time, that both of them are not in it. So that tells you how rare this is for something like this to pop up like this.
I was a little surprised. Well, I guess I wasn't surprised initially that Carter Hart was named the starter for the Flyers. It'll be Hart versus Jarry. But had the Flyers known that they'd be in this situation, do you think they changed their mind and go to Martin Jones in this spot? Because you got to get him a game in here. Do you want to play him Saturday in DC? Because then your next game is not until Wednesday against Toronto, and you're starting to stretch that long period of time that I've talked about.
Yeah,
is too long for a backup.
I think it might have been a different story if they kind of knew what they were getting into here.
Yeah.
The interesting thing overall for me was that Martin Jones has pretty good numbers overall against Pittsburgh in his career, even though he's been playing out west. 2.32 goals against average, 2 shutouts in 11 games against the Penguins. He's 5-5, but 2 of the 5 have been shutouts, and hasn't given up a ton of goals in the other one. So he's had decent numbers against this team, but I think maybe in AV's mind, Carter's the go-to, and you don't want to send any message to the contrary right now, given that everything is not. It's weird. Sometimes you have the problem of too many games at once, and now they're looking at the problem of not it's not enough. But would not be surprised maybe to see Jones get Washington. I don't know. I guess it'll depend on how things go for Carter tonight. I'm sure they're in touch with him to see how he's feeling and what he's thinking and things along those lines. But there's definitely going to be a time here pretty quick that they're going to need him a lot. It just happens to be one of these little windows in the schedule where the Flyers are going to get a lot of time off.
Yeah, I mean they're in action tonight. There'll be an action in Washington coming up on Saturday night. Then they'll be back home against Toronto. Then they go back out for 2, and that's a back-to-back. So you're gonna split that with that's Carolina and Dallas. So he'll probably get the Dallas game, Jones. But does he get a Washington or Toronto game? And look, we saw Hart the other night against Arizona, and I know that it's Arizona. I don't care. But he looks incredibly sharp. He is dialed in right now. And when you're playing like that as a player, games can't come fast enough. The last thing you want to do is sit. And when you go on a heater, whether you're a skater, a forward, defenseman, or a goaltender, you don't want any time. Look, you just cannot get enough games in. And when you're struggling, you want the exact opposite.
Yeah, and that kind of extends over to your team too. When your team's cooking, they do not want to stop playing. And it seems to me that every time there's been a huge break in a schedule in these last 4 or 5 years, whether it was Olympics or All-Star or the CBA mandated break that they negotiated in, every time the Flyers hit that break, they've always won like 5 games in a row or something like that. And just want to keep on going. But yeah, I mean, once you get through this run here,
gets real busy.
Starting on the 10th, really starting on that Wednesday. I mean, that back-to-back you mentioned, that's part of a 3 and 4. And then basically they've got 3 games in 6 days after that, and then another 3 and 4 on the backside of it with travel. So it's
all right. Switching station, stand by.
Making sure that they don't get into a point where when they do put him in,
Delaware and Chester County.
rusty.
And IBEW 654 strongly believes
let
that
him
it is
dial
imperative
by
to get back to
too
the
long.
community. And they have just
I got your station feeding into
every one of them feel that it's a privilege to help the community.
you got the station feeding in here now.
Asking that you help out again, please bring a new unwrapped toy and join me Saturday, November 13th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at IBEW 654 Union.
That's the one. I got too many buttons over here.
Yeah, you got a lot of buttons going on, man. Flyers, Penguins. We're going to join the radio audience here in a few minutes, so we will kind of deal with that as it comes. It's obviously a little difficult to deal with that when we're doing a show, but one of the things I saw on social media today as well, I forget who put it out, but Joel Farabee's got his best numbers against any opponent against Pittsburgh, and he hasn't scored now in 5 games. Tonight be a good night to get Farabee buzzing again.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. And, I think a lot of that has to do with last year's schedule being what it was. Farabee was kind of coming into his own when the COVID pause hit. But 10 games against the Penguins, 8 of them were last year. 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points.
Not bad.
That's a pretty good start for him. The other, I keep looking at these numbers, and I was talking with Timmy today actually about how scoring first lately hasn't mattered much between these two teams, but a lot of the numbers are a little bit skewed by how weird last year's schedule was. They played that I forgot about this. Remember, they played that 3-game series in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
March 2, 4, and 6 because of the Flyers I think first Pittsburgh might have had a problem, but then the Flyers had their COVID problem, and a couple of games got moved, so they ended up playing 3 in a row in Pittsburgh, and that's just weird. That never happens. So, it's interesting to look at how that affects overall numbers. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that I was a little surprised. A lot of the new guys, a little surprised by how well they've played against this team. Risto's got 10 assists in 26 games against Pittsburgh. Cam Atkinson's got 9 goals against this team in his career.
He's seen him a lot.
Yeah, he has. So it's there's some of the guys that are coming in here this year have got pretty decent performances against this club as well.
Well, it'll be fascinating tonight. The one thing that we've learned in sports is when you think a result is a foregone conclusion, it's anything but.
Yep, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
while it may not be sustainable for them to have success game in, game out, this depleted in this situation, maybe you can, because everybody raises the level of their game. And sometimes when everybody does that, it becomes infectious, number one. And number two, they go out and they say, we're missing all these guys. We'll show you. And, the human nature part of a team like the Flyers, who sees a team that's depleted, is to not take them as seriously as you would when you're missing Crosby, Malkin, and all these guys, Dumoulin. And so the Flyers got to find a way to avoid that. And that's going to be incumbent upon the leadership group to say, hey, like Arizona, these 2 points mean exactly the same. And like Ivan Provorov said to me the other night after the game, I loved what he said. Games against the Penguins and like the Capitals, they don't mean more. They're the same in the standings, but they feel like they mean more.
They do. And, the other thing that there's a lot of weird things going on tonight, obviously, even before all this stuff's going on with their roster. I mean, this is the 7th game and an 8-game homestand for this team for whatever reason.
Wow.
And they have not played since last Saturday, the night before Halloween was their last game. So they
really
went through, they had a season opening trip down south. They won the game against Tampa where they raised their banner, because banner raising teams always lose, right? And then they went 3-0-2 out of the gate. And then they came home. I'm sorry. I should have used better wording here. That 3-0-2 start included 3 games at home, and then they lost 3 in a row. So by that point, you're wondering, like, all right, we just lost 3 games in a row, all at home, that's not something that should be happening, especially early in the season. So now they get 5 days off to think about it. They have been sitting. You know how it is when you lose a game, right? The first thing you want to do the most is get back out there and play again.
Get the taste out of your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. So they've been sitting in kind of their own stink of this 3-game losing streak for the last 5 days. So that is probably going to be a little bit of a catalyst for them tonight. But at the same time, you know how these guys are. They get more than 3 days off, they forget how to play hockey almost. The passing is not crisp. It's just something's off. So this is an opportunity probably for the Flyers again, like we were talking the other night, to hopefully jump on them in the first 10 minutes and see if they can open up a little bit of a lead to work with. And if they can't do that, then that second period is going to be rough again.
Yeah, you're right. And that's the key now to the game tonight, is when a team's had that much time off, they're struggling, they're missing so many bodies, jump on them, don't give them any life. It was kind of like you said, like the same message against Arizona a couple of nights ago. I mean, coming into this game right now, I mean, we're sitting here on the 4th of November, and the Penguins are in the bottom spot in the division. I don't know the last time that the Penguins in the calendar month of November or December were in the bottom spot in the Metropolitan Division, maybe in the Patrick Division last time. I mean, think about this. The Penguins and the Islanders are the bottom 2 teams, each tied with 8 points. The Isles have only played 7 games. Pens have played 8, 1 point back of New Jersey. Then the Flyers have fallen back behind the Columbus Blue Jackets again, who managed to get that win despite missing the empty net and having the game tied. But the Flyers right now in the 5th spot in the Metro, 11 points, 8 games played, 9 games played for Columbus with 12 points, 13 points for Washington. They've played 1 more game than the Flyers as well. The Rangers at 14 points. They've played the most games in the division, the only one to play 10. And then the Carolina Hurricanes, well, they're just a wagon right now. They've won all 9 games so far this season. They're at 9-0 and 18 points. They're the only team in the NHL without a loss or an overtime loss so far this season, a totally clean record. So they're grooving right now.
And not only are they grooving, but they've they've been able to come from behind the last couple of nights and keep that going. There were a couple of times, I'm checking in the scores every now and then, thinking, "Oh, this is going to be it. This is they're gonna finally lose a game." But the other thing too is, and this is not to discount anything that they might have been doing, but we were talking about how Arizona, they've lost 10 in a row, but they've had about as hard a schedule as you can get. I think for Carolina, it might have been a little bit of the opposite. I haven't looked at their full schedule, but I know that they've been going up against some teams that are probably ones that they should beat on a given day.
Arizona was there.
So I think wasn't Chicago the other night? Is that where they were?
Yeah, they beat Chicago. They may have they had Chicago twice? No, they beat Chicago in their last game 4-3.
Yeah, they have had them twice. You're right. They played them last Friday.
Yep. Yeah, 6-3 and 4-3. They beat them in 2 of their last 3 games.
So you put in, look who else they've had here. They've had
Montreal
twice. They've had Nashville. I'm sorry, that's their preseason schedule. Let me find the start of the real year. They've had the Islanders, Nashville, Montreal, Columbus, Toronto. Bruins are not having the start that they would have hoped for. Blackhawks twice, and there you go. So
yeah, it's fascinating. But we're gonna have the radio audience join us here on the pregame show. Let me take this earbud out since we only need one ear at a time. All righty. And welcome to Philadelphia Flyers hockey. It's the Flyers and Penguins. All the cliche sayings, a rivalry renewed, the Keystone, Battle of the Keystone State, whatever. It's Flyers Penguins tonight. Brian Smith, Jason Martinez. Countdown to face off with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates from PPG Paints Arena coming up. And the first matchup between these two teams of the season, where a year ago, Bri, they played 8 times against each other. Matter of fact, opening night and the second game, both in Philadelphia, were against the Pens, and the Flyers swept those first 2.
Yeah, I remember that first game. I probably will never forget it. First game that we've ever been in attendance in ourselves that was played in front of no fans, and it was the strangest thing I've ever been a part of in 20 years working in the sport. You just I think you were upstairs, but I was downstairs because we had staged the media in the lower bowl. And I lasted 2 periods down there, and the first thing I said was, "Nope, this isn't going to work because I'm too low. I've been watching games in the press box all this time." And the other thing that you could just hear everything. You could hear the stuff on the bench. And I remember texting one of the NHL refs, who's a buddy of mine, after the game and telling him, "Wow, these guys sure like to call the game for you, don't they?" Because you could hear stuff that you are not accustomed to hearing. So that was quite something. But hopefully we're now headed into an era where we have more games like we did, in 2012 and at the link against these guys than games we have where nobody's there.
The fascinating thing is, when the Flyers play the Penguins, there's a bit of nostalgia that's involved with it. And you go back and you think of some of the moments when Peter Laviolette's trying to get at Dan Bilesma, right? Standing on the edge of the bench and they're going at it. Or Scott Hartnell doing the Hulk Hogan cup in the ear thing, or the Crosby thing where he hits Tiemannin's glove on the ice and Bundy went nuts on the radio call. All these moments, it kind of brings you back a little bit, and that's what's great about the rivalry.
And what started it all really was and they just had Darian Hatcher on the telecast here in the pregame show, and it all started, remember, out of the lockout and before the lockout, right? The Penguins are the last year of terrible Penguins, right? They were irrelevant to the Flyers before the lockout in those 5 years. They come out of the lockout, they've got Sidney Crosby, who's heralded as the next Wayne Gretzky, and he's pretty much lived up to the hype. But he comes into the Wells Fargo Center that first game that he played against the Flyers, and he goes into the corner with with Hatch, and he comes out with a bloody lip, and then he starts yapping at the referees about it. And that was the day that the Philadelphia faithful turned on Sidney Crosby.
Didn't take long.
It's been like that for the last 16 years now. And that Pittsburgh series, I mean, that 2012 one, that was one for the ages. That was just really just one of those epic playoff series that you'll talk about for years, with the way those games went. And what game was it that Claude let him up off the opening faceoff and scored 30 seconds?
It was game 6.
Was that game 6, the clincher?
Yeah.
I mean, just stuff like that is what this rivalry has been about. And I think it's probably still got a little bit of life left in it. We just have to kind of get things going back to normal here against this team before we can enjoy it again.
Well, I mean, go back to the Primo 5 overtime goal, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's another one of those moments. And like everybody knows where they were when that goal was scored at what was it, 2:34 a.m. or whatever. Yeah, I've never seen a bar empty so quick because they turned off the TV.
I was in bed because I had to be at work. I was producing a morning show at that point, and I had to be at work at 4 a.m. And I woke up at about 2:35, and I remember thinking I should just turn the game on, see if it's still going, because I made it to like 11:30 and decided to take a nap. I missed it by 15 minutes.
Oh.
If I'd woken up 15 minutes earlier, I would have seen it.
Yeah. I mean, some of the moments were just unbelievable in the history of Flyers Penguins tonight. It's going to be Carter Hart getting the start for the Flyers. It'll be Tristan Jarry for the Penguins. And the Pens are without Crosby. They're without Malkin. They're without Dumoulin, and I think Ruedl's out of this game. Mike Sullivan, the head coach of the Penguins, will not be behind the bench. They've got COVID-19 people testing positive, people in protocol. It's a bit of a mess right now in Pittsburgh. They're off to a 3-3-2 start, bottom spot in the division. And the Flyers will head to Washington on Saturday, but they got 2 points they need to grab in this game tonight against a depleted Penguins team. And despite the fact that Crosby and Malkin and so many of those guys are out, it's still 2 points in the standings, and it still is the Flyers versus the Penguins. So stay tuned. Tim Saunders, Steve Coates, they are at PPG Paint Arena in Pittsburgh, and I'd say standing by, but I'm sure they're sitting. Stay tuned. They've got the countdown to face off and all the first period action coming up right after this. You've been listening to the Flyers pregame show on the BetRivers.com Flyers broadcast network. Oh, all righty, streamers. We'll see you. We'll see what the Flyers do tonight. And everybody, enjoy the game.
Whew.
And Schmitty's going to go have some tea and honey.
Yeah, I got to make another one. I'm out. I didn't time it well.
Wow, look at this. Joey B from Colorado checking in on the stream.
All right.
Good, Joey. And then we got...
Look.
Joey also wants to know where the cat is. We just saw the cat's ass a minute ago.
I finally got her to go away. It's funny. I'm here and I don't see them, and then I start talking, and they show up. Like it's time to go here. I like Joey's kids' Colorado Eagles jersey there. That was cool.
Yeah, I like that. All right, everybody, enjoy the game. Bri, rest up that voice.
Yeah,
We'll talk.
We'll catch you in a little bit.
See you guys.
Folks.